Alright, that's a little weird, that light coming in. I don't know if that's because... Oh, it's because of the... I cracked my camera there. Alright. Bruchim Abayim, welcome everyone. Oh, so it's like that. Alright. So, why is it necessary to work with a rabbi when converting to Judaism, and can you really do it alone? So the answer to that is it's really impossible to convert to Judaism alone, because in order to convert to Judaism, you need 3 Orthodox Jewish men. Ideally, all 3 should be rabbis, but at least one of them ideally should at least be someone who has enough rabbinical knowledge to know the laws of conversion to Judaism in order to convert. So you really need other people to convert. I've heard it be explained that the holiness of being part of the Jewish community is something that can only be confirmed by someone who already has that holiness. That it's not really a conference, though. It's really a judgment. We see in the Bible that there's a discussion. There's mention of the judgment of the convert, the din of the ger. It says when discussing din, when discussing judgment and requiring judges to adjudicate cases, one of the people mentioned as far as litigants is bein ish legero, between a man and his stranger, but the word ger is used to mean a convert. And even in the biblical sense, it's already used to mean a convert. So in order for someone to become a convert to Judaism, you need 3 observant Orthodox Jewish men. Orthodox not necessarily meaning big O Orthodox, that you're a member of an Orthodox synagogue, but that you believe in the orthodoxy of our faith. You believe in the 13 principles of faith, and you observe orthopraxy. You observe our religion, the tenets of our religion, and which really it's all one thing. And in that sense, and those men cannot be related to each other. They have to be what's considered to be valid witnesses and valid to be judges. And if some question as to whether a convert can be one of those judges, it makes the most sense that the convert can be a judge, because a convert is always allowed to be a judge for another convert. In monetary cases, and I would say all the more so in the case of a conversion, although there's some rabbis who disagree, and so for that reason, if possible, it's best to avoid that, but it's not always possible to do so. The conversion almost certainly is valid with a convert being on the conversion court. It really doesn't make sense to invalidate based on that. So no, it's not really possible to convert alone. Now there is discussion in the Talmud of someone who did convert alone and what is his status. That doesn't mean that it's something that can be done. It's just a discussion of the status of such a person, and everyone agrees that if someone did such a thing, he would need another conversion with the tribunal of 3 rabbis or scholars, or at least pious Jewish men who understand enough of the laws. It's not really that complicated, the laws of conversion. People have made it much more complicated than it needs to be. But nonetheless, it is something that's taken very seriously, and it is something that if someone were to undergo all the rites of conversion on his own, there is some doubt as to whether or not this person is thereby obligated within the stringencies of Jewish law. But everyone agrees that he would not have the, I would say, what the word I'm thinking of is not the rights, but the privileges of being a Jew. For that he would certainly need to undergo another conversion. It would not be expected for any community to count him for a minyan, to give him the aliyah, and so forth. The question comes into being, though, with someone who performed a questionable conversion, though. Is this person now obligated to live according to Jewish law? And theoretically, could one count such a person for a minyan as one of the 10 men in a quorum? It's a genuine question, but the best way to avoid such a question is to only have a proper conversion done. Again, a proper conversion doesn't necessarily mean all the politics that have entered into the conversion world, mostly due to Zionism, but a proper conversion still nonetheless requires it to be a halachic conversion, a conversion that follows Jewish law. And ideally, since it's such an important thing, it should follow all the stringencies of Jewish law. And so for that reason, if someone had a questionable conversion, there's nothing wrong with insisting that someone should undergo another conversion. And I often tell people that I myself have sat on conversion courts, some of the best and some that I'll admit might be somewhat questionable due to politics. And we've always said that, with that being said, go and do it again if you can. And if you can do it the best way in the first sense, that's the best way to do it. But there is an idea, in the place where there's no men, be a man. There are some cases where it is in the best interest of people to do something that's less than ideal, and then hopefully when the person and I know people who are very pious and live good, strong Jewish lives on their own, in following in this way. But those same people, I would tell them, as soon as you move to a different community, and it's going to be issues for their children, and that's the biggest problem. Generally, I believe very strongly when you're speaking about older people who can't have children, we should make it much easier. But when you're speaking of young people with children and so forth, it's and when I say easier, I don't mean violating halacha in any way, but not necessarily having all the politics be such an issue. But when it comes to, and so many people are so quick to invalidate kosher conversions, and this whole idea that I've often heard it said that some 95% of Orthodox conversions are not properly halachic. That's a quite ridiculous statement. Are there some people who claim to be offering Orthodox conversions who actually don't know halacha and doing things wrong? Are there Orthodox rabbis who perform conversions with only 2 people on the Beit Din, which there is an opinion that could be valid, but certainly it's not the normative practice and should not be done. Yes, those things do happen. Are there people who perform conversions while the Beit Din is watching over Zoom or something? It's definitely questionable whether something like that is valid. I would never endorse something like that. That's really quite irresponsible. And I know people who do that, and I've rebuked them for that. Now, on the other hand, there's some people convert while wearing clothes instead of taking their clothes off to go in the mikveh. Yes, and that is very well, most likely valid, particularly based on the Rambam's idea that a tovel b'kelev tahor, if someone immerses in the mikveh, saying this is not for conversion but for anything, he's wearing clothing, particularly if the clothing is not very tight-fitting, that's not a chatzitza. And generally we understand that the laws of immersion for conversion are less strict than the laws of immersion for purity. And so therefore that is halachically valid. The common practice, though, is that women will cover themselves with a robe or a sheet or something, and then and immerse again without it. Oh, what happened? So, not sure where it cut off here, but the most important reason why you need a rabbi to convert is someone to learn from, or to at least oversee your learning. And then when you're converting, you really do want a conversion that will be recognized as widely as possible. Again, it's not always possible. Depends where you live, it depends. I don't think you should make unreasonable expectations for conversion. But there are some very reasonable expectations. Generally speaking, keeping Shabbos and kosher, and putting tefillin every day, and all these things, and keeping family purity laws and everything are reasonable expectations. Now, is there an opinion that says, well, all you are accepting when you're accepting to convert is you're accepting that, basically, colloquially we could say, is that, well, if you break these things, you're going to go to hell. Meaning, and that's really what conversion is. Meaning, it's not a promise that you're going to be perfect. But the idea is, if you have to understand what you're getting into. Meaning, and this is what the sages tell us, you're supposed to tell someone before they convert. You tell them, you understand, until now, you could eat what you want. Until now, you don't have to keep the Sabbath. You're really not supposed to keep the Sabbath. Now, if you eat pork, or you eat chaylev, you eat this, that, you eat a cheeseburger, you get lashes. If you break the Sabbath, it's a death penalty. You really want to do that? You really want to accept that upon yourself? Now, of course, we don't have the death penalty today, but you don't want to be walking around liable to death penalty. You don't want to do a sin that you would be liable to death penalty for, because if you have a death penalty sin, then it's kares. If you don't receive the death penalty, you have kares. You have spiritually cut off. Is that really what you want to do? And if a person says yes, and also you understand that the Jewish people suffer a lot, big reason for that is to keep us humble, and that the main thing we're looking forward to is the afterlife. And if a person humbly accepts that and says, yes, I'm not worthy to this, but I want it, so then we're supposed to accept him right away. The person has to understand what he's really getting into. One Dayan I know, he says it like this. He said, better a good Gentile than a bad Jew. And that's a really good way of putting it. That if you're if you're not really sure you believe in this, first of all, you're really not sure you're going to believe this in your whole life, you're really not sure you're going to keep this your whole life, what do you need it for? But it's definitely better if you do convert. If you're going to keep it, and you do believe in it, there's no doubt to me that the best thing in the world is to be a good, observant Jewish person who believes in the Torah and who keeps the Torah. But are you really sure that you want to do it? Because you don't have to. And there are those who say, well, it really doesn't matter as far as your afterlife, this and that. The righteous Gentiles also have a place in the world to come. The place in the world to come, though, of the righteous Gentiles is less than a mediocre religious Jew. Now, an apostate Jew, I don't know about that. Even though the Arizal says even the worst Jews eventually have some kind of a rectification. The rectification, it's actually, I heard a lecture from Rav Moshe Wolfson Zecher Tzedakah Avracha, his first yahrzeit just passed, and he said the Ariya Kodesh speaks about Korach and his rectification. He does not mention Dasan and Aviram, Dathan and Abiram. And the Orach Chaim Kodesh says there is no rectification for them, but the Ramah Pano said that they were rectified, they were reincarnated into the animals that Elijah sacrificed on Mount Carmel. And so that might be the rectification. We don't know, but we'll see. Thank you for watching. And I would say that applies to a convert as well. That if a convert is Chazal Asuro, he could also have a tikkun in the end. Because once you're a Jew, you never go back to being a Gentile. You could lose that state of grace of being a Jew. That is very easy to lose, and that's why in the Orthodox tradition, our morning blessing is, "Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who did not make me a Gentile." That's not to insult a Gentile. That's just because there's nothing wrong being a Gentile. But it's to say, do we really live up to what it means to be a Jew? And so, I generally like to use the term when speaking of a heretical ex-Jew, that he's a non-Gentile, right? That's probably the best term that we can use. He's a non-Gentile. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. This wasn't a very good video. I'm sorry.